What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be jumping into Supercross 25 to try to reclaim all 4 of the time attack world records in the time attack on rhythm attack. When the game very first came out, we jumped right into rhythm attack to check it out and see if we could just try to figure out some of the physics without the turns and things, and we ended up getting some of the world records, but obviously that wasn't going to hold, since the game had just released. However, it was something I enjoyed doing. And after playing some online and a little bit of career mode, I thought I'd circle back and try to reclaim some of the records. And I gotta say, it was quite a bit of fun. We did encounter a pretty frustrating glitch on one of the tracks, so we'll get into that a little bit. I feel like the rhythm attack is kind of underrated because it does teach you a lot about the game's physics and things like that. Little minute details that get kind of overlooked when you're trying to deal with cornering and things like that. So what you guys just saw was my first attempt since the last time I tried to play this mode, and the track is the LA River. It was the first one that I played. I kind of like it. It's not my favorite out of the 4, but it's pretty good. One thing I did start to immediately realize after seeing the new world record time is that there was some new lines to work on, and I thought I might actually see another new line of my own that I didn't know of anybody that was doing it, so I started working on that as well. So what you guys just saw right there was me experimenting with sending it over that wall jump to see if it was faster. I did notice that you could technically double that section, and I thought maybe if you hit it just right, you could even triple in, which could maybe give you a better line because you'd be able to jump on and off the table afterwards. All right, so now what I wanted to try was to try to go for that wall jump and actually clear 2 of the rollers after it. Like I said, I thought that would give me an on-off on the table, which would actually make that line a lot more viable. So as you can see, I got off to a pretty bad start. I wasn't really concerned though, because I knew that the chances of me actually putting this whole run together was pretty slim. I just wanted to kind of experiment and see what I could do. So I got up to the wall jump and I sent it. And as you can see, I actually made it, kind of. So anyways, I was like, okay, that definitely was interesting. Got to the finish line, and if you look, the actual split times here were quite a bit better on the second half of the track. So armed with that information, I knew I was on to something, and I aimed to act on that with the next run. I wanted to also try something before the whoops. I had a little theory, so I went ahead and tested that this next run, and things were going pretty good, but by the time I ended up getting to the wall jump, I ended up not having a great run at it, so I knew I was only going to be able to double it. So I went ahead and did that, and then I made a small mistake right after, and that would ultimately cost me the record time, at least my own personal record. But even with those mistakes and not being able to hit the triple in, I still only lost by 13 one-thousandths of a second, so I knew I was on the right track. Skipping ahead to run number 7, I didn't get off to the very best start, but I knew there was still quite a bit of margin on the time here, so I just kind of kept going. I wasn't too far off. I knew it would come down to just having a clean run, and especially the wall jump. I ended up getting a pretty good run through the whoops and just kind of relatively matching my time, so I just kept pushing my way through. Then as we got to the wall jump, I kind of full sent it, and I ended up coming up really short on the triple. It still kind of worked though, because I got a decent bounce off of that little case, and I kept my run going, but then after the last double, I kind of came up a little bit short and then bogged through the whoops. But remember, the ghost time was in the 44s, and so far I've only ran a 45. So here we ran our first 44, and once again, we are on the right track. On the next run, I got off to a pretty good start, and I was right there with everybody. Then as we made our way into the whoops, I didn't get quite as good of a run through there. It was still decent, so I kept going. And as we got to the wall jump, I got an absolutely terrific shot up and over the wall. The problem with that was I never hit the table after that so quickly, so I jumped a little too far off of the table, and that really killed my momentum for the rest of the run. But for the first time, I was clearly ahead of everybody, so that was also really cool. Alright, so skipping even further ahead to run number 12 here, obviously not going to waste your guys' time showing you each and every attempt. We ended up getting a pretty good run here, solid start, solid run through the whoops. I was battling pretty close with the leader ghost time at the start of the track, which usually doesn't happen. I was usually kind of just trailing him at this point. So coming up to this midpoint, I was a little bit nervous because this next jump is what determines if I will double or triple over the wall jump. And as I landed, I knew I did not want to go for the triple. So I sent it up and over the wall jump, kind of guessed, crossed my fingers, and landed pretty smooth. We were in business. Just needed to carry momentum. Things were looking pretty good. I was still in the lead going into the whoops, but you can mess this up by leaning too far back. Fingers crossed, and we got it done. New world record of a 44.232, beating the old record by almost a tenth. Definitely still some room for improvement on this one, but I was happy to leave it there because I still wanted to get to the rest of the world records and see if I could beat those. So the first time around playing these tracks, I was able to try 3 of them, but I was not able to get to the county fair track. So I decided I wanted to head there next and at least see what was going on. Looking at the top time, it was about a 47, and based off of the records on the other tracks, I thought there was probably some room for improvement there, since generally the other ones are a lot lower than that. So anyways, we jumped right into that. We're looking at my first ever time riding the track here, and I ended up sending it up and over the wall jump here on the first lap. Not really sure what to expect, but it worked out pretty good. I ended up taking over the lead, and I thought I might be repeating what we saw on some of the other tracks where I get the top time on my first attempt. Sure enough, as we came to the line, I did end up holding on to the lead, and I got it done in the first try. Now, after that, I knew there was quite a bit of room for improvement, so I went ahead and just kept going. I wanted to try to get a better time because I knew that that was definitely not a fully optimized run. So going into the second run, I was pretty optimistic that I could immediately beat my time again. I wasn't sure what to do on the couple of wall jumps that there was. I knew that sending it the first time worked out pretty good, so I went ahead and sent it again, and I went a little too deep this time. Ended up salvaging it though, kept the run going. I started to see my old ghost time starting to just kind of peek its front wheel up just a little bit, but I just kept my head down and kept things moving. As we came up to the midpoint, I knew I wanted to try to stay on top of these tables as best as I could, not hang up the rear wheel or anything, and get a good run through these whoops. And then this wall jump is where things were kind of uncertain. Ended up checking up. Last time I checked up, but not enough, and I went way too far. This time I hit it pretty good, and we got our first ever 46. Now, skipping ahead to the fourth run that I did on this track, I had pretty much decided that you want to send both wall jumps, and if everything went accordingly, I was pretty sure I could get in the 45s. So coming up and over this table, I was setting up for the wall jump. As you can see, my last run, which was a little bit better, I checked up for the wall. Anyways, good landing here. And if you look at the math, as we go through this section, you'll see I start to pull a little bit of a gap. So as we were coming up to the midpoint, I did have a theory that if I could hit this next wall jump perfectly, that I could actually triple up onto the next tabletop instead of landing on the single. What you see right here is I get a little too far back, and that ends up actually making me land on the single perfectly. So I didn't get to try that theory out, but I did still have a good run. So I ended up coming up just short of the 45 with the 46.058. And this is where something became frustratingly apparent. There is a glitch in the game right now. It's a known issue that they're working on where if your time is too fast on certain tracks, it just won't save. And this was one of them. So if you guys remember back to the start of the very first run, we could see the fastest time kind of checked up at the very end, and that was because that's pretty much as fast as you can go where the time will still register on that track. So I did go back through and try to get a time that was as close to that as possible. It ended up not being the fastest time as far as what's on the actual leaderboards, but I don't really count that anyways, since I have a time that's like 2 seconds faster than that over here. So as of right now, I'm still counting this as my personal best with the 46.0. I'm sure it definitely could contend with the world records if they were actually updating. We'll see what happens when Milestone fixes this issue. But anyways, we're gonna move on to the fourth and final track here. The reason I say fourth and final is because my record on the track Hellbore Grove is still holding, but we do need to go back to the Space Center and try to reclaim that record. I definitely think I can improve my Hellbore Grove record, but I'm just going to try to make sure that I'm at least going to take all the top of the leaderboards, at least on the 3 that we can. So anyways, getting into this first run on the Space Center, you'll see my old best time is pretty strong, so we're just going to get a feel for the track again. Now right here I noticed that the new best time does something drastically different by jumping up and over the wall jump, something that's been working for us on the other tracks that we did not do here. So I take note of that. So now I'm just looking to see if there's any other major changes I need to make. And it looks like we're going to finish off the run. Nothing too drastic here, but we do notice that the new time to beat is going to be in the 44s. So starting off the next run here, it's going to be interesting to try to get up and over that wall jump. I'm not sure exactly if it's a full send or exactly what it's going to take to get the right landing. Here you see we go up and over the first one and we have a pretty good landing. I was kind of off the start. and we made up some pretty good ground from that nice and smooth landing. As we approach this midpoint jump here, I know that I'm going to want to at least check up a little bit because landing smooth on this jump will determine the wall jump. And as we fly into the air, it looks like a pretty good run and we get a good landing. And now I'm thinking, shoot, can I beat this guy on my first attempt? As we make our way up and over the dragon's back and into the next double through the whoops, it becomes apparent he's just a little too far ahead, but we do get a new PB. So it would seem we just need to shave off about 3/10, which I could definitely get back just at the start. So skipping ahead to my fourth run, I got off to a better start than my personal best, but still pretty far behind the world record. I ended up getting a good landing off of the first wall jump send, but not quite as good as my original personal record. You could see him just starting to close in there. Then I hit these next couple tabletops really good and jumped too far into the midpoint jump. So I go full throttle, try to recover, get a good landing, full send over the wall jump, get another pretty good landing here, try to be clean on off here. Couldn't do it, barely got the wheel tap to kind of save it. So now we're in full salvage mode. Try to land early to get a better drive through the whoops, but it's too little, too late, and we end up almost exactly 1/10 short. Looking at my sector 2 time, I'm almost 3.5 off just right there alone, so I'm feeling pretty confident that I can go ahead and get it done. Heading into the 5th run, I knew I needed a good start as the world record has a really good start, but I knew I could also capitalize on him later on in the track. As you can see here, we're off to slightly a better start this time. Looking to get a good landing off this wall jump send, and we do get it. Now I do want to try to remember not to over jump the jump into the midpoint jump this time. So here you can see we do that, but you still have to check up. You don't want to overshoot this next jump. We come up just short and that pops our front wheel up. We get a really good drive into the wall jump, completely blocked by my old Ghost. But anyways, good landing on off, much better than my personal record. So now I know I just need to check up and get a good drive through the whoops and we should be able to get it done. Moment of truth, and we got there. So if you guys remember, the old Ghost time ended in 996 and here you see we got a 995. Beating the world record by 1/1000th of a second. I'll definitely have to circle back and try to better that record at some point. But for now, it feels good to have at least these 3 world records, and then who knows what's going on with the 4th track. I do find it really satisfying trying to squeeze out as much speed as you can in a straight line with this rhythm attack type of gameplay. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching it. Hopefully maybe you learned something about the game. Either way, if you made it this far, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I'm trying to continue to push out good content, so it would really mean a lot if you do. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video.